and quality education for the citizens, one of the very few who is giving women representation across the continent, and one of the very few who maintains that people-focused leadership is his passion. On that note, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to invite His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, on stage as he takes his keynote speech. Thank you very much.
Let's sit down, please. I actually feel like 61 today. I want to start by thanking you, my brother and friend, Professor Osibanjo, for taking time to come over. This is a great honor for me. Thank you for coming. I want to start, I don't know if I should stand on all the existing protocols, but let me honor the Honorable Vice President of the Republic of Sierra Leone, Dr. Mohamed Jude Jallow, Your Excellency, former Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, and my wife, Defense Staff, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and members of the diplomatic and consular corps, government ministers and deputies, our revered paramount chiefs who are here, members of the press, invited guests, my family, members and friends who are here today, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A good morning to all of you. To our first colloquium, with deep gratitude. As we gather here today to explore the principles of effective leadership and governance, I'm also conscious that this date, 12th May 2025, marks my 61st year of life. And for that, I say thank you to God for the gift of life. In the relentless service of our nation, personal milestones like this can pass almost unnoticed. However, I've come to view birthdays not just as markers of time, but as sacred moments in life's continuous journey. Moments when we pause, as we have paused today, to reflect on lessons learned and look forward to new horizons. Ladies and gentlemen, today, I want to reflect on the formative experiences that have shaped my beliefs, the strong connection of duty and hope that motivate our work, and the call to service that encourages all of us to turn our visions into lasting impact for the people we serve. Ladies and gentlemen, my path to public office was fully shaped by people. As a young soldier answering the call of duty during one of the darkest periods in the nation's history, I learned that leadership might begin in crisis, but it must endure beyond it. Every negotiation, political and military leaders, and every conversation with concerned citizens and civilians taught me one immutable truth. Leadership is not conferred by rank or by title, but by the bond of trust between those and those who serve. My encounters with farmers in the provinces when I normally go around, market women in freighters, bustling stores, and teachers in remote Our classrooms have shaped my understanding of governance as a profound responsibility towards human dignity. However, before any uniform or office, my first things in leadership were learned at home. The family is the foundation which our early days are from. There is no single definition of family, nor is leadership tethered to age, gender, or social status. Leadership, I have discovered, is everywhere leaders choose to serve. My mother, of blessed memory, was resilient, God-fearing, and unyielding in her values. She steered our household through hardships after my father passed away. Through our examples of honesty, hard work, and unshakable faith, she taught me that true authority grows from sacrifice and trust. My late elder sister also exemplified leadership. Her sacrifice of personal comfort to ensure my education remains one of my greatest privileges. From them, I learned that the foundation of leadership does not rest in public office, but in the quiet acts of love and courage that uphold families and communities. They taught me how leadership flourishes outside traditional corridors of power. In classrooms and fields, in market, in hospital wards, women across Sierra Leone have risen as architects of progress, often without recognition or reward. Their resilience reminds us that nation building demands the inclusion of women's vision, women's voices, and also women's wisdom. In my 6 years of life, I've come to realize that leaders are not born fully developed. Leaders are shaped by trials that test their resolve, by preparations that sharpen their purpose, and by innovation that expand their vision. From the military barracks to State House, I have witnessed leadership transformation through adversity, the rigors of training, the crucibles of conflict, and the demands of governance. At every stage, I have relied on two key principles. One, the importance of foresight in anticipating both the immediate challenges and those that lie ahead. Two, the courage to embrace leadership is, among other things, the art of awakening in others the desire to serve their fellow men. And it's a personal journey of self-discovery that finds its fullest expression in acts of compassion, justice, and courage. True leadership transcends the confines of the titles and the stations that we carry. It stands as a living testament to our shared humanity, a bond of trust that unites hearts and minds in the pursuit of a common good. I'd like to dwell briefly on 4 paramount elements of leadership that I have learned in my journey to where I am. Leadership actually begins in humble places. In the midnight vigil of a nurse tending to the sick, in the steady hands of a miner delving deep into the earth to get the minerals out, in the tireless journeys of motorcyclists linking our remote villages, in the patient guidance of a mother who gathers her children to read beneath fading lamp. Service without the need for title or recognition is the truest measure of influence. Quiet, steadfast, and radiant with compassion. Education is the key that unlocks the mind's horizons. It kindles curiosity, empowers innovation, and forges intellectual tools with which we build our collective future. By nourishing the mind, we cultivate the seeds of discovery and resilience that no storm can unroot. At the heart of my philosophy lies a profound conviction. All that I am and all that I have achieved is a gift from God. As our distinguished guest of honor, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, reminded us in 2017, and I quote you, "There is no wisdom of man that can change the men or change nations. It is the power and wisdom of God that can." End of quote. Ladies and gentlemen, having said that, faith alone does not work miracles. It is the bedrock upon which we build our labor, the compass that guides us through moral uncertainties. The other thing is humility. What does it do to us? It tempers our ambition, reminds us of our limitations as leaders and as human beings. And we often talk about accountability. What it does is to bind us to the promises that we serve not ourselves, but the people who place their trust in us. My daily reflection on my role as father, as husband, as former soldier, teacher, businessman, and now as president, keeps me mindful that leadership is, above all, an act of stewardship. Human progress is born of shared purpose. Trust is the invisible fabric that knits individuals into a community, transforming different dreams into a unified vision. When we place confidence in one another's goodness and capability, we unleash a collective energy far greater than any solitary ambition. In that unity of hearts and minds, a nation finds deep strength. As the first democratically elected president born after our independence, I carry the weighty responsibility of charting a course for a nation still in its adolescence. I must say, nation building is neither abstract nor immediate. It requires the patient labor of system builders who think beyond the 5-year horizon of election cycles. Our future must be anchored in core African values, reference for wisdom of our elders, paired with the courage to innovate for tomorrow. From the hands that till our fields to the miners deep underground, from teachers shaping the minds to civil servants quietly keeping our institutions functional, every Sierra Leonean contributes to our collective destiny. Leadership means service, and true service often goes unseen. I recall once a young female professional asking me during one of my early political campaigns whether I truly needed to be president to make a difference in Sierra Leone. That question has haunted me and inspired me also ever since. Service requires no title. Our doctors, nurses, security forces, bean collectors, motor riders, farmers, markets, women are the silent heroes whose dedication sustains our daily lives. They teach us that leadership is measured not by fame or authority, but by the impact we have on others. If we as a nation learn to honor every act of service, no matter how small, we lay the groundwork for enduring unity and shared purpose. Service without title demands humility and compassion. We must remember that the loudest voices are seldom the sole custodians of wisdom or power. The quiet dedication and work of countless nameless men and women is the true engine of social cohesion and national progress. Education is the clearest path to empowerment. Here, when you go around, people talk about empowerment, they actually mean cash in hand. But nothing is more empowering than education. Nothing, absolutely. Whether acquired in schools, in workshops, or in marketplaces of life, education broadens our horizons and equips us to meet the challenges of the rapidly developing world in which we are living. From my first time's free quality education program, which allocated 22% of our national budget to learning, to the revitalization of technical and vocational training, our administration has invested in human capital development because no weapon is as potent against poverty and ignorance as knowledge. A nation that feeds its people but starves its intellect betrays its own potential. We must nourish the minds as purposefully as we cultivate our crops in the fields. Leadership rests upon trust in the integrity of institutions and especially in the collective potential of our people. Trust is born when citizens believe their grievances will be heard, their rights protected, and their aspirations supported. Sierra Leone's past has shown us the tragic cost of silent voices and unspoken truths. Healing these divisions requires more than grand gestures. It demands robust mechanisms for dialogue, reconciliation, and justice. These mechanisms persist beyond the term of any individual president. Only when we build bridges of understanding across ethnic, religious, and regional lines can we claim the unity that undergirds sustained peace. Leadership, like faith, requires forgiveness, recognizing missteps without allowing regret, anger, or a desire for revenge. As God extends to us that grace, so must we extend it to one another. Let's learn to forgive, and if possible, forget. I engage in daily introspections. How can I be a better man, a more attentive leader and father, a more compassionate friend, a more servant-hearted president? This humble pursuit of improvement, I believe, is a true measure of character. Nations prosper not by the wins of the leaders, but by the strength of institutions that outlast them. Democracy is not merely the casting of ballots. It is a living system of checks and balances, of civic spaces where citizens speak and are heard with dignity. From an independent judiciary to a credible electoral system, from decentralization that empowers local councils to anti-corruption bodies that hold the powerful to account, our administration has sought to fortify the framework that safeguards liberty. We have welcomed criticism, protected the freedom of expression, and broadened participation of the marginalized, knowing that the true test of leadership is the resilience of our institutions under pressure. A country cannot flourish when half of its people are constrained by outdated norms. Now I come to our women. Women's leadership is not a concession to be granted, ladies and gentlemen. It is a right to be affirmed. Through legislative reforms, tackling gender-based violence, financial windows dedicated to women entrepreneurs, and targeted scholarship for girls in STEM, we have sought to tear down barriers that have long dimmed the potential of our women in this country. When women rise, families stabilize, communities prosper, and nations advance. As we forge our country's future, we must ensure that every woman stands not at the margins, but at the very center of our collective endeavor. Sierra Leone has borne the weight of deep divisions, political, social, regional, and cultural. I know that in my own journey to this office, I have at times stumbled and offended a lot of people. A dialogue and the bravery to reconcile, creating connections instead of walls of protection. When we focus on our differences instead of building connections that go beyond them, we often pay steep price. However, achieving unity is neither quick nor easy. It requires durable and thoughtful solutions that ensure every citizen has just cause in times of conflict. Our progress so far is a work in motion. We have come far from colonial subjugation through civil strife to the hard-won triumphs of democracy. But many more miles remain ahead of us. We can claim true healing as a nation when we accomplish the remaining work to be done. We must honor you to root out those who it finds expression in every civic responsibility that we carry out. An army and police force may protect our borders, but trust in the institutions and in each other's strength is what creates the social impact. I honor, therefore, the veterans who have sacrificed for our democracy. Maybe I'm one of those. The civil society champions who guard our freedoms, the everyday citizens who fulfill their duties with integrity. To all of you, I say congratulations. Keep up the job. My hope is future generations of Sierra Leoneans continue to regard their citizenship as a solemn trust to build, to serve, and to preserve our heritage. I think of this colloquium as a living laboratory for leadership. My birthday wish is to celebrate each year the emergence of new leaders, mentors, and mentees bound by shared purpose, pioneers forging uncharted paths, thinkers whose ideas will carry our nation forward. Through the Julius Maada Bio Leadership and Innovation Prize, we will honor those whose service exemplifies the pillars of leadership. My true hope is that their examples into aspiration in the hearts of every Sierra Leonean. I'm not one of grand celebrations of myself, ladies and gentlemen. On this day of reflection, I challenge Sierra Leoneans to embrace leadership in their respective spheres of life, whether in the household, in the boardroom, classroom, clinic, or field, or factory. Let us recommit to unity forged in diversity, to institutions built on trust, and to service offered without expectation of reward. May our people-centered leadership light the path to a future radiant with promises of great generations yet unborn, for a resilient nation and for our shared humanity. I appreciate each and every one of you, ladies and gentlemen, taking time to celebrate with me at this first Julius Maada Bio Leadership Colloquium. May God bless you all. May God bless our beloved nation. And may God bless the people of Sierra Leone. I wish every Sierra Leonean born on the 12th of May a happy birthday.
Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Your Excellency, thank you for that incisive statement. Another round of applause for His Excellency. I've already requested that the speech, be given to me immediately after this event, because I really need to read that speech. It's quite incisive, lucid, and important for anyone or students of leadership. Another round of applause for His Excellency. Well, thank you very much, Your Excellency. This is the second part of this session. And like I promised the guest, there are parts, there are things we never knew about His Excellency that we're going to probe him and see how we can get that information out of him. Your Excellency, I only recently learned that you had enrolled to be a Reverend Father at some point. That's an interesting news. That at some point you also taught for a few months before the love for Sierra Leone and the love for country drew you to service to your fatherland. And of course, and the urge to also contribute to building the country that you love. Now, something very striking from that, from cradle to this stage is that there seems to have been a smooth transition from a military leader or a military man to, of course, a Democrat and a leader. Now, what would you say, looking back, prepared you for that smooth transition? Because we've seen those who struggle to drop that uniform and embrace democracy, leadership, and also and good governance. What would you have said prepared you for that transition?
Thank you very much. First, let me thank all of you for coming here today. I thank you with my friends. If I had pursued my first unfortunate situation for you. Not so. Because you wouldn't elect me as your president, not yet. And you are going to miss a great first lady. So it is God that decides where we go. We plan, but He decides. He makes the final decision. I quoted my brother, everything that we do, we think we are planning, we think we are actually in charge, but we are not. We are only doing according to His will. So I am where I am because this is where God wanted me to be. And talking about transition from military to politics. When we are trained as officers in the military, as an officer, you are trained as a leader. Military, I went to a school dedicated to bring up leaders. You can easily call it the eating of Leone.
Oh, wow.
Most people call it do. You did not go to that school if you are not a son or nominee of a paramount chief. This was deliberate and purposeful on the part of the British who ruled us at the time. They wanted their own, the chiefs they have, their own children and nominees to be trained to take over. They didn't want problems like we have around now. A lot of people protesting because they don't know what leadership is actually about. So, not by my own design, like I said again, I was going to CKC and I would have been, I was actually going to CKC because of my being a Catholic. Once I decided to go to Bosco again, not, I think, choice by default, but I also believe that there was divine direction. So this school taught me how to lead. We are leaders from that school, and the administration of the school, when you are in classes, is in the hands of teachers. But for the rest of the day, the students themselves are monitored by, we have our police system, we have people who decide who eats and when you eat. They are normally the fattest. And we have people who instill discipline. So when you go through all of those, you are much more prepared to lead when leadership calls upon you. And of course, I truly believe, even as a military man, that democracy is still the best form of government. Although when we wear our uniform, you call us dictators, but this dictator then has brought more democratic credentials to this nation.
Absolutely.
Actually leading the first democratic transition in 90 years. Like we said, democracy itself is not just about election, casting your vote. But what we call liberal democracy are the freedoms that go with democracy. I left off in 1996, and when I came back, I realized that the freedoms that should go with democracy are still not with the casting of our votes. That was why I freed the press. That was why I removed the death penalty. And we have been involved in a raft of reforms meant to open up the space, especially for the women and for the children. So my democratic credentials are not by accident. I truly believe in it. And our war was actually as a result of lack of democracy. When a few people, Tolombo, decide that they will have only one party and that we have no option, you only vote for that same party, I was opposed to it, even in the military. But we did not have the means as a people to democratically remove them because you only had one way to vote. And all of those who rose in dissent had their fate in the grave. We thought it necessary to take the risk to remove them so that this country can be free. It was not for the sake of power that we took over. I will bring that out at a later time. In fact, our mission that day, on the 29th of April 1992, was only to remove them and then go front. We needed people to replace them, and we didn't have the right people. So we got stuck. We were young men. We think through all the processes. That you remove a government, you have to replace the government. It was far gone when my boss then, Strasser, called me. He said, "Where are you?" I said, "I'm going back to Daru." He said, "Where are you leaving me? Alone here?" I said, "No, you are the leader. You stay there and carry on. I'm going to fight for my people." He said, "No, you have to come back here." That was how I became the most unlikely person to become Minister of Information. So, for me, democracy we should cherish. Even those who claim to be the proponents of democracy, let them renege on it. But I think it is the best form when we all decide that this person is our leader, this party is the winner. Let the majority decide the fate of a nation rather than a few. It will never work. It has not worked. And I truly believe. And so my transition, I normally give the analogy for the ornaments that we wear. We like gold. Everybody likes gold. Gold is one of the most expensive. And in fact, it's even more expensive today than ever. Gold in its raw form, nobody wants it. It's all scattered under the earth. It's nuggets and sand. It has to be refined. It has to go through a refinery, a furnace that cleans it up. For us to be good leaders, we have to go through those crucibles. I have had to go through a lot to get to where I am. So for me, it's an honor of my life that the people of this country, I wanted them to vote me, not me coming in and telling them, today I'm the head. They had no say in that. In this one, as I sit here, all of them seated here, most of them voted for me. But there are a few people who didn't vote, I'm sure. I say thank you for telling me that we cannot be the same people. So the transition, for me, has never, because I prepared myself for it. The military training, I can see one of my bosses here. They put us through very difficult training. And like I told you, an officer cadet is trained as a leader to lead men in battle, in stress. That's why sometimes people say, oh, there is so much and you look so calm. Fear is infectious, and a leader should not express that. You have to remain calm to find solutions. Cowards die many times before their death. Once we had a situation and one of my soldiers started running in the wrong direction. He was actually going towards the enemy. And he got his death, actually. Because he was so afraid. He did not even wait to appreciate the battle, to understand where these people are coming from. He was so afraid that he ran towards them. So leaders must have the nerve to stand very difficult situations, because everybody around you would have panicked, and if they see panic in your face, they will be running faster than you. So you must endeavor to be calm and to lead, because that's only when you can think properly. So coming to this question again, for me, it has been a natural transition. I've had to go through many situations in the military, in my training, my school days, and of course, after I left, I gave myself close to 15 years before I came back. I lived in two democracies, in France and in the United States. I have been a keen observer of what makes these democracies tick. So I was well acclimatized when I came back, and therefore have not found this incompatible with my military background.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. A round of applause for that. I guess a lot of us that are taking notes, this is a loaded answer from His Excellency. But I'd like to pivot a bit. I think I've asked these questions some time ago where ask that, in your first term, education and human capital development was the key, key messaging and key theme of the administration. And I remember asking you at one point, I said that that's not a politically convenient decision for those to be empowered. Those who perhaps will be ready to in another 10, 15 after you are gone, right? And but you felt that the best way to unlock the opportunities and to set the country free and set them on the path of sustainable development was education. And I wanted to ask, why was that a position for you? See that you perhaps would have focused on consolidating and building your base for the next election. That politicians prepare themselves for the next election when statesmen and leaders prepare themselves or prepare the next generation. But you chose to prepare the next generation. Why was a key and messaging for you? Perhaps there's a story to that.
I think you rightly characterize this colloquium as people-centered leadership force, people-centered leadership. Sierra Leone was once known for its, or was once famous, not for the arms that we carry, or for the diamonds and gold and the other things that we have, but for the knowledge that reduced the rest of the world. We were once the Athens of West Africa. That is where our comparative advantage is. We should use the diamond, gold, and every other thing to empower us to create and to share that knowledge. That is what we are known for. The very strong here. But you do not invest in the human being through education, healthcare, and food security. That human being is not fit for purpose in the 21st century. So for us, in as much as there were other attractive things to do politically, I actually zeroed in capital development, starting with education because of limitation of resources and of course of time too, because the best way to develop any nation is actually to develop the people. The most precious asset we have in this country are the people. And the only way you can make the people ready and fit for purpose is to educate them. Give them the knowledge, the skills necessary. Now, we are faced with AI. We should jump onto that because that is where the world is going. Without that, we will be at the receiving end of another revolution. We have been at the receiving end, I always say this, of several revolutions in the world, from industrial to agrarian revolution and many other revolutions. If we do not pre-position ourselves ahead of the curve to take advantage of this, we will also be at the receiving end. So for me, education is everything. I think everybody who spoke here today have reiterated the importance of education. And it is left with us to embrace it as a nation. We put the policy out. We insist. The implementation, like Professor Osibanjo said, depends on all of us. We bought books and sent them to certain parts of this country. They said the books were bought by the SLPP will not read them. They are depriving their children. They pack them in the stores. We bought buses. They will vandalize the buses. Buses for school children. Like you said, when you invest, and we have not only made education accessible, we realize that there are many other aspects to education that have been a hurdle for our people. You can make access available, but then they cannot even pay for transition exams. We are paying for all transition exams for all students in this country. Kids cannot go to school when they are hungry, or if they go to school, they will not learn. Not even the teacher can teach properly. Although we don't provide food for them, but I know they eat. So everybody is okay there. The kids can listen and the teacher can concentrate. So we have engaged in a lot of other things. What we promised in our manifesto then was free quality education. We have gone far beyond that. And to even take another dimension to it, where we have put people at the center of everything that we do, the campaign by Madam First Lady, Hands Off Our Girls. You know, we had very old hands who were always chasing these little girls, distracting them from school, getting them pregnant, and leaving them and making them liabilities to. Now, she has launched what is called the Hands Off Our Girls. And the adults are abiding. It took time. Means we don't want any adult to play around with our kids. Leave them to grow, especially the girl child. We must nurture and nourish them. They have the same brain power, if not more, than some of us, the men. But for a very long time, as part of our culture, we kept them in the dark and dungeons. And now, freedom has come for them. Last. So, education, there are so many dimensions to it. It's not enough to just make access free. The girls who have been disadvantaged for a very long time, we now have STEM scholarship for them. If you're a girl child and you are doing STEM, you can go from preschool to the end of university. You don't pay a dime in this country. And guess what? The anecdotal results are already showing that they are vindicating us. They have led in all transition exams, the girls. They've led the boys. And for the first time, one of the oldest universities in Africa has had the highest enrollment of students, women, for nearly 200 years. This is last year or the year before was the first time they had the highest enrollment in engineering. These are not by random. These are deliberate policies that are beginning to show effect. Of course, many told me, don't make the mistake of, it's risky to put all your hopes on education, because the kids and everybody that you're going to, for the first round of election, they will not be even ready to vote. But like somebody has said here, I did not come here for the nomenclature, especially for a second term. I came to affect people, to impact the lives of people. I want to do things that will change the narrative of this country. So why many think of politics, I'm actually thinking about the bottom of the pyramid. The many people who want to go to school but just cannot afford it. And guess what? It's not billions. Sometimes we take $20 for breakfast. And some of these people are dropping out of school for as little as $20 per child. So I chose, and with the support of my team, and I want to say a big thank you to the Honorable Vice President, the Chief Minister, and the Minister of Finance, because every time we have to pay subvention to the education. It's huge. They're grown. This is going to take us out of the program, but I said to them, education is existential in the 21st century. If we have to sell everything that we have just to make sure that we educate the next generation of Sierra Leoneans, let's do it. It has not been an easy path, but we just can't if we are true leaders, not just politicians that want to be elected the next time. So I took the risk. and it's paying off. So there has to be a difference between politicians and those who really care for the development of their countries. And my choice of education has been informed by my decision to make sure that I effect change at the bottom of the pyramid.
Thank you very much for that. Again, my next question is actually somewhat related to that, because I was having a conversation with the former president of Malawi, and she was telling me how she's adopted your concept. I call it concept because she says you had told her in a conversation that your priority is to feed the mind through education, then the stomach through agriculture, then the body through healthcare delivery. Now, this concept that you've adopted, is it also something that is born out of your understanding of how to
I come from the view that the human being is the most powerful that God created. And when empowered, the human being can do anything. If we are talking about going to space, talking about AI, or all the things on earth, we have created it. God created us, but we have created all of that. And there is no way we can do anything to the development of the world if that human being is not empowered. So, for me, as I've always said, we have done this out of the conviction that when you educate a man, and in this time, for this purpose, women, please excuse me, when I say a man, I mean all of you. When you educate an individual, and you feed that individual, which makes him or her capable of living a healthy life, that person with the equipment in the head, with the stomach full and the head taken care of, leave him or her, they will go anywhere in the world and thrive. So what I mean by feeding the tummy is food security, and what I mean by feeding the brain is all education in all its forms, from technical, vocational, numeracy, and everything. So if we feed the brain, and if we feed the tummy, and the person is healthy, they are good to go, and good to go anywhere. So you give them the universal key to open all doors of opportunities around the world. That is what I believe in, and that is why for me, human capital development is not just about education. It's a holistic or comprehensive approach that takes care of not only the brain, making sure that it is well equipped with the knowledge and skills, but also making sure that, of course, we human beings, in fact, we can live without education, but we cannot live without food. So food is a necessity. And food plays in being healthy. So malnutrition, and again, we have just come to realize that, in fact, certain societies are more productive than others because they have taken care of malnutrition in the early stages of the children's development. And if you don't do that, you see grown-ups who cannot think properly because they lost certain things when they were growing up. In the development cycle, they did not have access. So the cognitive and development and everything is never correct. So if you want this human being to be a fit-for-purpose human being in the 21st century, you take care of the health. And that takes me to immunization. Most of the crippling diseases that kill our children are because they've not been immunized. But I'm happy to say that Sierra Leone is among I think, one of the few countries where our immunization rate is almost always in the 90%. We are leading Africa and the world when it comes to immunization. So when we think health, food security, and education, do you want this person to be a great woman if you did not immunize the baby when she was? She becomes crippled or dies before, so you lose out. So you can't unpack that, keep it together. Health, education, and food security. If you care for the human being, and you want that human being, even when they grow up, to be productive. Some people don't think properly, not because of their fault. They don't even do logic. Not because of their fault. They were deprived. They did not have food and to understand simple logic. So it is for our women to know that education will help you. Even malnutrition, in fact, in Sierra Leone and in most parts of Africa, is not as a result of lack of the food. It is as a result of the lack of knowledge, education among our women folk who don't know that you have protein in Benny, and that you have carbohydrate in this, and when you combine them, they don't have to be a formula from the UK or the US. You can make your own formula here. If you are educated to know that you need some amount of carbohydrate, some amount of protein, and some of all the other things to get a full take care of the body and leave that person. They will survive anywhere. They will go and fend for themselves. You don't have to. And that is what I want to do for Sierra Leone.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. And now one final question, Your Excellency, before we go. I want to take you on this. I know that almost no government across the globe ever exhausts their plans or policies within the tenure or the time frame of the government. But just asking you, where do you see Sierra Leone as a country, and of course Africa extension, in the next 10 years?
A country that will be recognized, has been recognized already, but we want to consolidate our position in the Committee of Nations around the world as a small nation that is ambitious and want to grow. We are diversifying our economy so that we can actually enjoy sound economic growth that will lead to job creation for our young people, many of whom do not have jobs. It is a very slow process, but that is what we aspire to do. We want to consolidate our democratic gains. We want to bring social cohesion. We want to be a nation that is together, and we can see and create just a vision that will be befitting to all of us. So Sierra Leone before today, especially after the war, and for the most times that I ventured out, they were still asking, is the war over now? We are even more peaceful than some of those countries. But for all they know, we were fighting for 11 years, and that is the image that they have of us. What I want is an image when, like today, if you go around the world and talk about education, even at the United Nations, they will tell you Sierra Leone. Go to Sierra Leone. If you talk about certain health indicators, like maternal mortality, even the WHO came here to find out how we did it by a 60% reduction within 3-4 years. Those are the figures that should be quoted for us. Our anti-corruption drive has been applauded all over. Freedom of the press, we still are making the dungeons of wherever they have thrown us. And I hope that the next generation of leadership is a continuous process. America is still fixing America. Every country is still fixing their country. We have to continue. And certain sound policies that need to be continued must be continued. And I speak so especially for education and for food security and health. This is the package that will move any nation. So from a Sierra Leone that was once the subject of Security Council last August, and in November again, Sierra Leone will be presiding over the Security Council. That is not by chance. That is because we, as an administration, have taken definite steps to clean our image internationally and to get back into the fold. So many things have been achieved. And if you talk about women's empowerment, there is no country that can challenge our record. You go to the UN, if you talk about women empowerment, the first country they will cite is Sierra Leone. We have been bold. They said you cannot take the death penalty, people are going to be killing one another. I took that off because we are human beings, our systems are not as strong as we want. It's been there. For the 1965 Act, how do we call it even? The criminal libel. They say if you take the journalists are going to be all over on you. They are going to kill you. I say, well, this is what leadership is about, taking those bold steps, brave steps that generations have not taken. It's been there. I removed that too. The journalists, they do cost me, but I don't care. I do what is right. And I'm not afraid of criticism because I'm just a human being. The Lord who created me knows I make mistakes, and that is why I pray every day, forgive me for my mistakes and my sins. So why should somebody talk about my mistake? Then I want to kill him. I want to decide. The death penalty was used to kill so many people in this country. I said, not under my watch. I will take it out of the asana of bad politicians. That is leadership. So, if the Truth and Reconciliation Commission report gave so many recommendations to make sure that peace returns to this country, it was only after I came to power that we have recommended the majority of those recommendations. Almost all. Many of them. So, we have laid, let me conclude by saying that this administration has laid a solid foundation for Sierra Leone to soar. It is left with the next generation of leaders to actually make it take off. I cannot say Sierra Leone has succeeded. There are too many problems, too many for me to solve. My resources are limited and my time is limited. People are already counting my days. I see a lot of declarations for this position. I have not even spoken about election. Many have declared for this position. So, we Sierra Leoneans have to make the next choice. That choice should be smart, it should be done dispassionately, and it should be for the very interest of the bottom of the pyramid, because it is for the people that we ascend and we should work for them.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. His Excellency, as you've never heard him before, And the final note is quite profound and a key takeaway from us. Thank you so much, Your Excellency. A round of applause for His Excellency as he takes a seat.
A round of applause, please.